C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
It's time for Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. Stay tuned for insights, impact, and inspiration right here on Channel Africa. Available on the Channel Africa app. Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And it is 2100 hours. A very good evening to you. A warm welcome. This is Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Thank you so much for joining us as we bring you the very latest news in and around the world. Whatever conversations you're having in your community, hopefully they're reflected here, and the developments that you would like to hear of or see more of, we do our very best to bring them to you. But share your perspective by sending us a WhatsApp on +27 634069126 and just share your thoughts on some of what we're covering and what we should be covering. Welcome to it. I am Tsepiso Makwetla. This is Africa World Hour. Straight to our top stories this hour.
It's time for Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. Stay tuned for insights, impact, and inspiration right here on Channel Africa. Available on the Channel Africa app.
A court in the South African city of Johannesburg has postponed the case against the driver of a scholar transport vehicle that crashed into a truck on Monday, killing 14 school children. 22-year-old Ayanda Dludla is facing 14 counts of murder, 3 of attempted murder, driving without a valid permit and operating an unlicensed vehicle. National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson Lumka Mahanjana says Dludla was previously charged with culpable homicide.
We found that we have prima facie evidence to prefer murder charges against the accused. Hence, he is now facing 14 counts of murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 3 other counts of charges related to contravention, the Trafficking Act. You must understand that this incident happened this week, so there's still a lot of investigations that the state needs to be finalized. There is still witness statements that still need to be taken. There's forensics that still need to get their results. So hence then the matter is postponed to the 5th of March for further investigations.
Deadly drone strikes have left people in and around central Sudan's El Obeid mourning and worried as the country's brutal civil war closes in on the army-controlled city. Residents said the attacks have intensified and caused significant civilian deaths in at least 2 cases. El Obeid is a key Sudanese city and the capital of North Kordofan state. Drones have become a key weapon with the war in particular using them to take over the army's early air dominance. Zambia is set to host the Continental Energy and Infrastructure Investment Forum. The 4-day summit is scheduled to take place in Lusaka from the 2nd to the 5th of February. It will convene 2 days of high-level conferencing and structured business-to-government engagements, followed by 2 days of strategic site visits to priority energy and infrastructure assets across the country. It is an historic milestone for the flagship Pan-African platform dedicated to advancing historic milestones for the energy security, infrastructure development and regional industrialization sectors, as it will be hosting it for the first time. The director of the Sub-Saharan Trade Hub, Malcolm Shabala.
In terms of the forum, we'll be looking at a number of critical areas or thematic areas that are really, really important to Africa's energy and infrastructure development. So we'll be looking at the case for coal, and you need to look at this in context of what has been happening recently. In this part of Africa has been hit with droughts, and we sit on quite a huge resource of coal. And we know that there's been a negative connotation around coal previously, but things have since moved on. There's clean coal technology, which we will be exploring and see how then coal can be used to fill in the gap in terms of energy deficits.
Guinea-Bissau's transitional authorities have announced that presidential and legislative elections will be held on December 6, marking the first official electoral timetable since the November 2025 coup. This move is closely watched by the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, which has been pressing for a shorter, inclusive transition. Tutongobeni reports.
The December 6th date for Guinea-Bissau's presidential and legislative election was set by a presidential decree signed by Transitional President General Horta Inta. It states that the vote will be organized under conditions that will be progressively put in place to ensure elections that are free, fair, and transparent. The announcement comes as the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has intensified diplomatic efforts in recent weeks to push the junta toward a rapid restoration of constitutional order.
And South Sudan's main armed opposition group says its forces have captured a strategic town in a new offensive aimed at advancing on the capital, Juba. The Sudan People's Liberation Army, in opposition, says it took Panyume, but local media say government troops in fact replied the attack. The BBC's Barbara Plett-Asher reports.
The claim to have captured Panyuma comes as clashes between opposition fighters and government forces have escalated in different parts of the country. A spokesperson for the SPLA in opposition described the attack as the opening of a wider campaign to take the fight to Juba. Panyuma lies along a key corridor leading towards Juba, although it's not clear whether the group could credibly threaten the capital. But the call signaled an escalation in its rhetoric and ambitions. The fighting was triggered by the house arrest and trial of the group's leader, Riek Machar, in March last year. He's being held on treason and other charges.
Nearly 35 million Nigerians are at risk of hunger this year, including 3 million children who are facing malnutrition. Speaking at the launch of the 2026 humanitarian plan in Abuja, UN resident and humanitarian coordinator Mohammed Malik Fali said the long dominant foreign aid led model in Nigeria is no longer sustainable and that Nigeria's needs have grown. Conditions in the conflict-hit northeast have become dire. Malik Fall also said that the UN had no choice but to focus on the most life-saving interventions given the drop in available funding. And as global leaders gather at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, the spotlight has been thrust back onto the legacy of the gatherings founded by Klaus Schwab. The forum was conceived as a platform to debate ideas and confront the pressing issues of the day. This year's gathering, however, takes place in a world transformed, marked by heightened geopolitical tensions, rising tariffs, and growing global fragmentation. These shifts could fuel inflation and increase volatility in exchange rates. The question is, how prepared is South Africa's economy to cushion the impact? South Africa's Reserve Bank Governor Leseja Kganyago answered this question, saying the main focus is on price stability mandate and pursuing new inflation targets with vigor.
For us, it is not just about inflation, it's also about economic activity. And our response in South Africa is three-pronged. Firstly, is that the central bank must focus on its price stability mandate, and importantly, that we pursue the new inflation target with vigor and make sure that inflation expectations are embedded. And we are able to do that because we do have the monetary policy space. So monetary policy remains focused on dealing with inflation.
And finally, US President Donald Trump says a productive meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has led to a framework of a potential deal covering Greenland and the Arctic region. Trump has backtracked on his threat of an additional 10% tariff on European nations over their rejection of his efforts to take ownership of Greenland. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
The move from the US president also comes hours after the European Parliament formally suspended the ratification process of a trade deal between the bloc and the United States over the tariff threat. The announcement also comes ahead of an emergency summit of EU leaders in Brussels on Thursday. The tariff threat irritated a number of European leaders in Denmark, Sweden, Germany, France and the United Kingdom, among others, who affirmed Greenland's sovereignty and self-determination despite US advances. President Trump said further information would be forthcoming on the proposed framework of a future deal, which would involve negotiations that would be led by his Vice President and the Secretary of State.
And that was the top stories this hour. Brings the time to 10 minutes past 9. We'll be bringing you the very latest on some of these major developing stories from the continent and beyond in just a moment.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. 1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And now let's continue looking at some of the major developments that we're watching here on Africa World Hour. So Nigerian police have confirmed that a group of worshippers were kidnapped from 3 churches in a remote part of the northern Kaduna state after previously denying it. Local residents say 177 worshippers have been abducted, but that 11 later escaped. The police spokesperson Benjamin Hundayan did not give any numbers but confirmed the abduction. He says the search and rescue operations and patrols are underway. For a look at what's happening now as we speak, we joined on the line by Nigerian journalist Adesua Giwa Osaji. A very good evening to you, Adesua. I believe you're speaking to us from Abuja, the capital. So what is the latest about the kidnappings? And this figures that I've quoted of 177, are the residents of that area confirming them to be correct, given the secrecy or silence that the police that have employed?
Good evening. Lovely to be speaking to you. Yes, you're right. I am in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. And you are right. It has been reported that 177 people were kidnapped in Kaduna State, which is in the north of Nigeria, and that 11 of them escaped. Now, one of the escapees spoke to media, spoke to Arise News here in Nigeria, and spoke about how he was able to escape. He said some people escaped in the bush and some escaped when they were passing through a narrow river. Now, what has happened here is that we have had some misinformation, particularly come from the police initially, who said that they had no evidence that there was an actual attack happen in Kaduna State. Now, southern Kaduna, which has a very large population of Christians in Nigeria, used to be a hotspot for violence, and particularly violence against Christian Nigerians. But in the last couple of years, particularly under the governance of the governor, Uba Sani, that violence has reduced. And it seems that because of the newfound safety in the region, there was initially a belief that the attack actually did not happen. But because of pressure from Christian groups and human rights groups, the police did come out and tell us that, yes, there had been people kidnapped. Originally 177, 11 have escaped. So we're looking for or hoping for the release of about 166 people from Kaduna State who have been taken away by bandits or terrorists.
And the police saying that they've launched a search and rescue operation. Naturally, we wouldn't expect them to, expose the intelligence of their operation per se, but are they at least engaging with residents of that area to allay their fears of either further kidnappings or just general insecurity?
Well, unfortunately, what we have seen in this particular region is that just a week before, residents of this same local government area had paid ransom out to kidnappers who had kidnapped other members of the community. What we're seeing now from the police is essentially action after the fact, or maybe delayed action, in the sense that they were not able to prevent further attacks. Since Donald Trump's focus on Nigeria, there has been an increase in terror organization of bandits or trying to kidnap or attack Christian populations in the north or north central of Nigeria. What the residents are telling us, or at least some of the people, particularly one of the men who was able to escape, is that he is pleased with what the governor is doing, that the governor is doing the best within his capacity to try and return the people of this village back to themselves, that those who kidnapped them claim that it was a retribution for what they perceived to be an action that was done against them in the past. But it does seem that the Nigerian police are working to fight this particular incident. But we must also understand and contextualize this if we're looking at the insecurity in Nigeria and the current crisis that we're facing when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to political terror or Islamic extremism. We are facing a multifaceted terror situation in Nigeria where kidnapping and terror has become commercialized. And so the police and the security services and the army are fighting on multiple fronts. Just 2 days ago, it was reported that 5 soldiers were killed in a suicide bombing in Borno State. And so it seems that the Nigerian security services are fighting a war against terror on multiple fronts.
And one understands that it's a complex security situation. Has there been any word from the kidnappers, the terrorist group that have claimed responsibility for the attack, and the escapees themselves? Have they been able to pinpoint, just from what they've observed or interacted with, who is behind the attack?
So it's not currently clear if we are looking at a recognized terror organization like Boko Haram or Lakurawa or ISWAP. But what we do know is that the terror group has reached out to members of the people that they have kidnapped, their family members, and have asked for some type of ransom as a starting fee. They've asked for 29 million naira. So that has already been reported, in that those who have kidnapped these people are asking for funds. They're also asking for motorcycles, which is used in a lot of these terror organizations as means to commit more atrocities. They do go on motorcycles instead of big vehicles for a lot of their operations. So these are some of the things that the terrorists are asking for, and they've definitely reached out to some of the family members of those that they have kidnapped. We must understand that because this is a small community, we have families who have members of their families, 10 or 16 members of their families have been kidnapped at once. And some of those family members have been reached out to. But in terms of knowing which organization, if someone has claimed responsibility for this, so far we have not heard of that.
And what does that suggest? That the bandits, terrorists, whatever they may be labeled, the captors, have intimate knowledge of the family members of their victims? Does it suggest that it's been a well thought out, planned operation, or does it suggest that it's even members of that community who are part of these groupings?
What this suggests is actually what it's highlighting. Because we have had subsequent governments in Nigeria that have not challenged this insecurity crisis, we have essentially entrenched commercialized terror in Nigeria. We have what I call a kidnapping industrial complex, where terrorist groups use kidnapping as a way to raise funds. A lot of these terrorist groups are embedded in the local communities. They have good knowledge of these communities. Sometimes the communities also have knowledge of these terror groups or the bandits. And what we see here, particularly in this case and other cases we've seen in the past, is that it's been well planned by the groups themselves. They hit not just one church. It's very important to know that this was a coordinated attack. It was multiple churches that were hit at once in an area. And so this shows some level of sophistication and planning by the terror groups themselves, but also shows some failure by Nigeria's security apparatus.
So thank you so much for that report and bringing us up to speed on what's happening on the ground at the moment. Much appreciated. I'm sure we will catch up with you at a later stage on what exactly is the state of the police search and rescue operation. Nigerian journalist Adesua Giwa Osaji speaking to us from Abuja, and we'll continue this discussion in just a moment with a lecturer at the Department of Criminology and Security Studies at Caleb University in Lagos to find out exactly how should we contextualize not only the security but policy gaps and what it means for the administration given the geopolitical tensions that exist over the insecurity in Nigeria.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
The South African Medical Association, SAMA, has officially suspended all relations with the Israeli Medical Association, a move welcomed by healthcare workers for Palestine, South Africa. The organization says this decision represents a powerful stand for medical ethics, justice, and human rights, echoing the global call for solidarity with Palestinians.
And recently, we've also seen other national associations, such as the British Medical Association, Turkish. They've released quite strongly worded statements, although none have gone as far as SAMA to cut ties with the Israeli Medical Association, as well as to call for the suspension from the World Medical Association. It's a watershed moment that an organization has actually taken this step. And it's not an idle threat. SAMA is a member of the World Medical Association, and they can action this resolution by bringing it before the World Medical Association.
Dr. Sadiq Mullah, chairperson of Healthcare Workers for Palestine, South Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
1 hour. One continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Right, let's continue with the security situation in Nigeria, looking at Kaduna State, where there were multiple attacks on some churches and the various congregants kidnapped. We speak now to lecturer at the Department of Criminology and Security Studies at Caleb University in Lagos, Nigeria, Dr. Deyeri Agbe, to speak to us about the manner in which the Nigerian police have handled this. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So there's been criticism not only from rights groups, but we've also seen from some international humanitarian groups about the fact that the Nigerian police even denied that these kidnappings occurred. What is your view? Was it due to the pressure, especially from the US, the accusation that the Christian community is being targeted in Nigeria?
Yes, I believe so. That after that much effect, hope I can hold on, please. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. I believe that's what's happening now. There's this disenchantment in the North now because of that narrative of as if the Western powers are trying to back Christians. That they say, Nigeria is a divided country, it's a very polarized country, and there's some politicians who read meanings to that attack, and then that's why these bandits now are trying to escalate matters and make it they're trying to as if the West of Islamic jihadis against the Christian Western powers, and that's what is happening now. And they're trying to dare the government or dare the American government that you can do whatever it takes. And that's why they're trying to, step up their games in kidnapping now. And you can see the effect now on But the national security advisor has not come out to make any complaints or debunk any of these things. But we know that is what from internet gathering we're getting. It means that what is happening now, that's what is causing that narrative.
But what I don't understand here is the strategy of the government by the pressure from the United States. At first, its defense was that, Nigeria faces a very complex insecurity situation, and that it's not just Christians that are being targeted, which is the truth. But then why then bow to pressure and even deny that it's happening? Are you not weakening your argument that it's not just a targeted religious sector? Are you not then revealing a weakness, not only in your ability to handle these terrorist groups or bandits, but just your intelligence capacity? Are you still with us? Right, let's see if we can get him back just to unpack the situation around what is the plan, the strategy of the Nigerian security forces. So the question I'm asking, sir, is does it not weaken the argument that the Nigerian police forces had made before in arguing that the attacks are not just targeted at Christian groups? When they turn around and actually deny the situation in Kaduna, does it not belie a lack of coordination in, the intelligence capacity or even, security ability to protect communities, vulnerable communities?
You just hit it on the nail. That's what Nigerians are saying now, that why the government denying that denying it, making it so obvious. But if you look at, not blaming the government too. The oppositions are cashing into this and trying to look at sending wrong narrative to the president or to the government, that the government is weak and vulnerable. We're tending towards election next year, 2027. So the government is being careful not to look as if they are weak in the eyes of the people. The President Tinubu is going for re-election now, and if he sends this narrative, because the perception that the West are coming to do your work, President Trump is coming to do your work, the work you're supposed to have done, you cannot do it. And now they send an attack again. So the government is trying to cover up and not to make it look as if they are trying to they're trying to look as if they are weak, and they know the populace will cash into that to vote the government out. So the government is being careful not to escalate it, using the media to escalate it. They're trying to use that one to deny as a medium to not to escalate it as a cover up for such now. So the government is being careful not to escalate it, to not create a wrong signal about or have Nigerians have perception about them, have the ability not to turn into, not able to solve because part of the Constitution is the ability to protect its citizens. And it's so sad that the government, Nigerians have been fighting the insurgency for more than 12 years now. Even though this government inherited that challenge, but the ability to turn intention to action to resolve it now has been very dismal, and that's where we find ourselves now.
What I'm trying to
have been spent.
What I'm trying to understand is whether the government is trying to engage the intelligentsia, people such as yourselves, who are security experts in academia, to try and understand this ransom economy. If we're saying that we've moved from terrorism, ideological terrorist differences to what has now become commercialized kidnappings, are they trying to understand what is the business model? How can they tackle it? Have they engaged academia or people in the know on how to tackle this?
Yes, we have made recommendations to government how to mitigate it, that you don't pay ransom to bandits, and you empower them. I did some analysis here, one of the local TV radio stations about terrorism financing, and that's one of the ways of soft target communities, of trying to, especially soft targets for secondary or school children, really. And you kidnap them and you pay for ransom. Government don't give us insight of how they were released. You know, you don't say they have been released. Did you pay ransom or not? So we made a recommendation that you don't kiss the bandits. There's the former Kaduna State Governor Erufai talked about kissing the bandit policy of the government. That you're just trying to, trying to empower them, embody them more. You can see the audacity now of the bandit trying to dare the government, because the government does look weak and not not able to fight up with bandits. So we have made a recommendation to the government, academia, our stakeholders engagement, security experts said you don't engage them, you don't negotiate with the terrorists. It's not a negotiation is not a good area for it. You smoke them out. So that's the narrative we should go into, not negotiating with them that will give them amnesty, as some people have suggested. But we now said, no, you smoke them out and use stakeholder engagement and deconstruct the narrative. And because Nigeria is a polarized country, so you need to cognitively, you need to try to psycho-educate them on how to go about. So we have made a recommendation, but the government is not listening and not just here and not listening to those recommendations of academia, stakeholders engagement, and you don't always use the military approach alone. Yes, that's we have to know the non-kinetic approach to solve this problem once and for all.
And the fundamental question then becomes, is it state complicity or state collapse? Because where violence becomes a marketplace, surely it points to either weak institutions or a government's role in corruption.
Yes, well, I've said several times in some platforms that there's a mega corruption in our security sector, and you can see it. We're just releasing funds, and we're not getting the feedback of those funds. So it's so sad that we are having this kind of, and we're not getting the feedback of it, and it's so sad. So we said a lot of things a lot of engagement that. That with government stakeholder engagement to go along with helping the government to solve this problem, because it's becoming a legally natural crisis of immense proportion now. And we're going towards 2027 election. We think we government should be able to work together and have a stakeholder engagement to be able to do this effectively. So I think we can be able to solve this problem once and for all. And
all right. Thank you so much. Dr. Aiba, unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there. Our connection isn't the best, and it is impeding us from having a more flowing, coherent conversation. But I do thank you for your input. That was Department of Criminology and Security Studies at Caleb University at Lagos, Nigeria, Dr. Deyeli Agbe.
Channel Africa is moving with the times, and so is our WhatsApp line. We've changed our WhatsApp number, making it even easier for you to stay connected. Send us your voice notes, comments, shout outs, and song requests to our new WhatsApp number, +27 83 288 6684. That's +27 83 288 6684. Save it, share it, and stay in the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
And it is now 27 minutes to 10. So we look at this perspective from an article that was just released recently, saying that as of January 2026, reports indicate a severe downturn in the Israeli agricultural export sector, with farmers and industry representatives warning of a looming collapse in the sector. The downturn is reportedly driven by widespread order cancellations and market rejections in Europe and Asia, largely attributed to international opposition to the ongoing conflict in Gaza. To look at the state of Israeli agricultural exports, we are joined now on the line by agricultural economist based in South Africa, Tabile Nkunjana. A very good evening to you, Tabile, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening to the
All right. We are hoping that the line will hold out because it seems that even your connection is a little bit weak. But let's just start with what is your assessment of the Israeli agricultural export sector, especially given what, as I mentioned, has been a rejection of the sector in protest as a result of the bombardment of Gaza?
So the reality is that it appears as if the citrus, particularly, which is one of the leading products that the Israelis are sending to the world, specifically into its neighboring countries, the Scandinavian countries, which normally buy these products and other fruits. There hasn't been much of those imports from those countries, and as a result, that is really seem to be impacting, the exports of the rural products, particularly the fruits, with a decline in the even in the amount. Even if you are to look into the values of exports that Israel will sell, well, normally around something a bit up there, but now it is a bit lower, significantly lower, compared to those. So it appears as if the current situation is formal markets that it normally sell its products to. It's not really happening, with some even farmers actually, reporting that they did not even go as far as, harvesting other products because there is no market. So they are mostly depending on the local market, which itself is being strained by the economic issues there because of the war that's currently happening.
And how widespread, and I use that word cautiously because I'm actually just trying to understand how deep the issue is, that of Israel's economic isolation, because we've heard of various actors call for this to happen, but we know that there's some countries, some of the big nations like the United States, in some cases I understand like the UK, have not been heeding this. So just you mentioned the Scandinavian countries, but beyond that, who are the bigger trading partners, export partners that Israel, for whom this has become a problem?
So I mean, trade generally, it depends on, one, the logistics developed over the invest.
Tabula, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to ask that we please just rather do a straight telephone call with you, because I'm basically hearing you every second word. Apologies to our viewers for the poor quality of sound and connection. We will take a quick break and come back.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Channel Africa is moving with the times, and so is our WhatsApp line. We've changed our WhatsApp number, making it even easier for you to stay connected. Send us your voice notes, comments, shout outs, and song requests to our new WhatsApp number, +27 83 288 6684. That's +27 83 288 6684. Save it, share it, and stay in the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Right, so let's go back to the issue of the agricultural sector in Israel. We are looking at the economic vulnerabilities and political costs as a result of what has been called for a boycott of the Israeli agricultural sector. And we are speaking to an economist about this issue just to find out about the extent of this. We are in conversation with Tsepiso Makwetla. Tsepiso, thanks for coming back to us. So we were just speaking about the impact of this, just how far and wide it is, and you're speaking about trade, the global supply chains. So just continue with what you've seen as the impact in the decrease in the agricultural export volumes.
Okay, so the issues around supply chains and the logistics, the reality is that because of the position of Israel is situated, given the Middle East, you will recall happening boundaries there that are since recent times. Some economies, including Gaza, of the products that Israel is selling to the world. Palestinians, they are one of their market, and give us much of things that are moving.
Tsepiso, unfortunately, I think we are trying, but it seems not to be working. So let's see if we can reschedule you for another time. My apologies once again.
Not a problem. Thanks. Otherwise, I appreciate the call and also having me on the show.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after a signing, a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. 1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And you are listening to Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue looking at some of the stories making headlines, some of interest and some that we have really been tracking as they develop throughout the days, the weeks and the months and years. So another one which has been of much international intrigue over the past couple of weeks has been the framework deal on Greenland. It's been agreed upon with US President Donald Trump saying he would require NATO allies to step up on Arctic security. That's the position of NATO's Secretary General after the new framework on a future deal was announced by Trump late Wednesday, who also backtracked on threats to impose fresh tariffs on European countries that opened his advances on Greenland. Trump also used his visit to Davos, Switzerland, to launch his Board of Peace, which was initially set up to undergird Gaza's ceasefire to redevelopment, but appeared to now be framed as a tool to resolve international conflicts, which could position it as a potential rival to the United Nations, particularly the Security Council. Sean Bryce Peace reports.
After pressure from European allies, President Trump backtracked on both military threats to take over Greenland and imposing punitive tariffs on countries that opposed his efforts to take control of the island nation. Mark Rutte is NATO's Secretary General.
We came to this understanding that collectively as NATO we have to step up here, including the US. Now, of course, our military will start the planning, but that is something which we are good at. I mean, NATO for 76 years has done this stuff. We have Baltic Sentry, we have Eastern Sentry, we have so many other missions and activities that will be done. And as soon as that is finalized, we will have to look where you have to take the decision. Is it in the North Atlantic Council? Is it at the level of the commanders? We'll see. But the most important thing is not the internal decision making. It is that we protect the Arctic region, implementing the President's vision that we need a safe Arctic region.
This is how President Trump framed the new agreement with NATO when asked by a reporter if he still wanted the United States to have ownership.
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. And I think it puts everybody in a really good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and everything else.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen indicated that they were open to further talks, but would not engage in negotiations on their sovereignty, and that only Denmark and Greenland would make decisions about their future.
The Danish and Greenlandic positions are the same, and there has been no negotiation with NATO yesterday about our sovereignty. Of course, there hasn't. That is a matter for us alone, and we do not intend to abandon the very basic principles of democracy and politics. Now we are continuing to engage in dialogue with the Americans about security. We also have a common interest in ensuring that there is no Chinese or Russian investment, neither, in my view, in the United States or in Europe. So, in fact, there are many common points and a common interest in ensuring our security.
Trump also used his time in Davos to launch his new board of peace for Gaza, amid concerns in some quarters that the initiative is now being expanded beyond its original remit.
We're committed to ensuring Gaza is demilitarized, properly governed, and beautifully rebuilt. It's going to be a great plan, and that's where the board of peace really started. And I think we can spread out to other things as we succeed with Gaza. We're going to be very successful in Gaza. It's going to be a great thing to watch, and we can do other things. We can do numerous other things. Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do, and we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations. You know, I've always said the United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it.
The UN weighed in on the board earlier this week through the Secretary-General's deputy spokesperson, Farhan Haq.
The Board of Peace has been authorized by the Security Council for its work on Gaza, strictly for that. We're not talking about the wider operations or any of the aspects that have been in the media for the last several days. What we're talking about is the work on Gaza. The larger aspects are things for anyone wanting to participate in this grouping to consider. Obviously, the UN has its own charter, its own rules, and you can do your own compare and contrast between the respective organizations.
The list of members so far includes the United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Belarus, Indonesia, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, among others. South Africa's presidency earlier indicated that it had not been invited to join, but Director General in the Department of International Relations, Zane Dangor, posted on X that being supportive of a reformed and effective multilateral system with the United Nations at its core was incongruent with being part of a private board of peace constituted by unaccountable billionaires, and where the agenda was to replace and destroy the UN with a colonial-style mandate. I'm Shervin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Now, South Africa will host the World Economic Forum Spring Summit in 2027, a major endorsement of the country's growing stature as a global business and events destination. The announcement was made during a media briefing in Davos on Thursday by the South African delegation, where the Tourism Minister, Patricia de Lille, welcomed the decision, saying the honour reflects South Africa's proven capacity to host large-scale international events and its strategic investment in business tourism. She said the summit will further boost economic growth, job creation, and efforts to build a more inclusive economy. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
South Africa's global influence continues to command attention following the announcement that the country has been elected to host the World Economic Forum's Spring Summit in 2027. This milestone underscores South Africa's standing as a credible and capable partner in global economic dialogue, as well as its growing role in shaping conversations on development, trade, and inclusive growth. Speaking during the media briefing in Davos, Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille welcomed the decision, saying the honor reflects South Africa's proven capacity to host large-scale international events and its strategic investment in business tourism.
Let me start by thanking the World Economic Forum for selecting South Africa to host the Spring Davos in 2027. We are ready, able and willing, and we look forward to us having been afforded this opportunity to host Davos Spring. South Africa is the leading business events destination in the continent and in the Middle East. Business events and tourism adds about 8.8% to the GDP of South Africa and creates at least 1.8 million jobs annually.
She said the summit will further boost economic growth, job creation, and efforts to build a more inclusive economy while highlighting past successes.
So this will further strengthen our sector to create more jobs and to assist us in building that inclusive economy. Now, we have hosted now with the G20 more than 135 business events all over South Africa that led to the Leaders Summit at the end of November. And we have illustrated that, our capacity to host business events. We do invest as South Africa to compete in the rest of the world to host international events. We have got our own South African National Convention Bureau where we invest money and we go out around the world and we bid for international conferences to be hosted in South Africa. Last year, we put out a bid for 65 events. So far, we have secured 35 international events.
South Africa's Trade Minister Pakstow said Africa, despite few setbacks, possesses enormous potential for growth.
Africa is well positioned today. While challenges remain, clear progress is evident. Improved policy and regulatory environments, stronger institutions, fewer conflict hotspots, and a growing wave of youth-led startups attracting global venture capital. Across our engagements this week, both venture capitalists and traditional investors express strong confidence in Africa's growth potential and their desire to expand on the continent. Africa is central to the global race for critical minerals, holding an estimated 30% of the world's proven reserves in sub-Saharan Africa alone. As demand for energy transition and advanced manufacturing grows, Spring Davos highlights Africa's rising strategic role in the global economy.
Building on the momentum of South Africa's successful hosting of the G20 summit last November, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola said global platforms such as the WEF provide a critical opportunity to advance the outcomes of the G20 presidency. He highlighted agreements reached by world leaders to increase funding for climate action, disaster prevention, and post-disaster reconstruction.
This setting is thus an ideal platform for South Africa to further advance its G20 presidency outcomes, in particular those reached at the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg on the 22nd and the 23rd of November 2025. And we are continuing even here in this platform. The G20 leaders recognize, amongst others, in addition to what our Minister of Finance have said, that climate change is having the greatest effect on countries and communities that are most vulnerable. They agreed on increased funding and support for countries to prevent disasters and to rebuild in the wake of devastating climate disasters. And this rings very true to our communities in South Africa because as we speak, the eastern part and the northern part and some coastal provinces are being ravaged by disaster, and most parts of Mozambique. There was an agreement on increased funding for climate action. This is particularly important for countries across the sub-Saharan continent and the whole of Africa.
Lamola further noted that G20 leaders agreed that countries rich in critical minerals must derive greater value from their extraction through beneficiation at source.
The G20 leaders also agreed that critical minerals that the world needs should benefit those countries and communities where those minerals are found and extracted. Beneficiation at source also spoke on issues of artificial intelligence, the role of the African continent, particularly in research and innovation. Also, a report by Professor Joseph Stiglitz on inequality, which recommended a high-level panel, which we also look forward to take through various multilateral platforms.
The hosting of the Spring Summit is expected to deliver tangible economic benefits, including increased investment exposure, tourism growth, and job creation. More importantly, it provides South Africa with a strategic platform to advance its development priorities, showcase innovation, and advocate for inclusive and sustainable economic models that resonate with the Global South. Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
And at 7 minutes to 10, let's take a sneak peek into African Diaries this Thursday. Can you believe it's Thursday? This year's gone by pretty quick, eh?
This year
is just like zzz.
No, ma'am, no. I'm feeling every hour.
Are you feeling every
Yes.
hour? I'm feeling it's going zzz. But at the same time, I am feeling it. But like every year is different. It's like that.
I know. It should be the 20th of February at this stage.
You feel like that?
Yeah, no.
Yo, I feel like no, like just
relax a little bit.
Let me catch up with my plans. I'm not yet done with the planning.
Oh goodness. We are going through Talk Thursdays. That's where we delve into trends, and this evening we'll be getting into photography, and we do this with artist Arthur Dlamini, who's going to be just walking us through his photography and how that's transcended into some kind of painting. Oh, it's beautiful. It's stunning.
Wow.
I really, really wanted Arthur to come in, but I understand that he's got things that he needs to deal with. And then in the second hour of the show, we catch up on a conversation we had with Dr. Richard Broom, who's a transcendental meditation specialist. And he essentially teaches us how to stop time so that we can live presently in it. I think that's very powerful.
Do you levitate? Or are you stopping time?
At this stage, we might just. In 2026, we don't know what's happening. We might just.
Ooh, goodness. Okay, Sheila. 5 minutes to 10. Let's continue now with Africa World Hour. As we wrap up, we look at this story. South Africa's foreign policy under renewed scrutiny as the country marks 32 years of democracy. Scholars and policy experts are now reflecting on Pretoria's role in a shifting global order amid rising geopolitical tensions and debates around non-alignment. These discussions form part of a webinar hosted by the South African Institute of International Affairs and the SARHI, the chair in African diplomacy and foreign policy at the University of Johannesburg. Here's our reporter Labogang Mabange with the details.
Just over 30 years into democracy, South Africa's foreign policy is facing mounting pressure to adapt to a rapidly changing global landscape. This is according to contributors to a newly launched special issue of the South African Journal of International Affairs, which examines the country's diplomatic trajectory under the 7th administration and beyond. Speaking at the webinar, Professor Lisa Otto from the University of Johannesburg says South Africa is now operating in a fundamentally altered global order.
And so the special issue is really anchored in the recognition that South Africa's foreign policy is operating now in a fundamentally altered global order. And in this, of course, we see the erosion of liberal internationalism, the shift towards multipolarity, at least some actors like South Africa seeking that, rising geopolitical tensions, and the weakening of multilateralism and international law. And so the issue doesn't necessarily just ask whether South Africa should return to kind of past foreign policy ideals, but also how it navigates competing normative, strategic and material pressures.
Prof. Otto notes that while South Africa's foreign policy has remained principled in theory, its execution has often lacked consistency.
We're finding that South Africa's foreign policy over the past 30 years shows a certain continuity in principles, but inconsistency in the articulation and implementation of those principles. Across the issue, we see that South Africa has showed a sustained commitment to Pan-Africanism, to South-South cooperation, and to multilateralism. But at the same time, these commitments have not always translated into coherent or kind of predictable strategic posture, particularly in the context of this kind of increasing global power competition between those blocs that we've seen traditionally, but now also increasingly reflected also in the strain in the transatlantic relationship.
The country's role in peace building and conflict resolution on the continent also comes under the spotlight. Dr. Tinashe Sithole from the University of Johannesburg says South Africa has maintained a consistent approach in this area.
In 30 years, passage of time, I think
as noted already, we are able to identify different patterns as well as continuity in terms of South African foreign policy. And we do see some form of consistency in terms of features that we see in terms of peace building, as well as conflict resolution in terms of its pillars, in terms of external engagement. And we've noted how South Africa has been able to propagate dialogue, mediation, negotiated solutions, aspects that are touched in part of the special issues and in the different case studies. And we've noted that also South Africa, rather than relying on coercive power, South Africa has been able to use multilateralism as a key strategy.
However, concerns were raised about the domestic political impact of recent foreign policy disagreements within government. Dr. Marcel Naga from the University of Johannesburg warns that mixed messaging could erode public confidence.
For us as South Africans, those that are witnessing these public disagreements, these mixed signalings on the part of the GNU when it comes to foreign policy, it may detract our faith in our government to really get on the same page when it comes to these important issues of foreign policy. And this may be reflected later down the line when we go to vote at the polls.
The special issue ultimately raises questions about whether South Africa can maintain its long-standing diplomatic principles while responding effectively to global power shifts and domestic political pressures. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And that's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour this Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us, and apologies once again to you, our viewer, listener, on the poor quality of the sound, the connection that we had with our interviewees. But we will strive once again for better connections and, of course, bigger, better conversations as well. Until the next time, it's goodbye for now.
Conversations that touch the heart and inspire change. Here on African Diaries, only on Channel Africa. Join us on www